The other shot?
Yeah.
Yo, deep in the healing process, I'm a rise on my soul.
I have an animal on mine. I'm about to beat their
Hey,
behinds.
she a professional. What is she trying to do? She a professional out here. I want a nice clean game. They have a good game. No smacking each other with rackets. Oh, they have a good game.
I'm smacking their behinds with a dog.
Trip. Let's get to work, my king.
So the first step in actually shooting cinematic video is understanding the right settings to use. These settings all work together to create a cohesive image that looks cinematic. This is your aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. An aperture is a hole or opening in a camera lens that controls how much light enters a camera. For instance, this 28-70 lens that you should buy from me is 28-70 with a constant aperture of f2, which means that the lens stays at f2 the whole way through. Compared to this zoom lens, from 150 to 600, its highest aperture is f5 to f6.3, which means that it changes as you zoom. These values affect how much light you're letting in your camera, which can be essential for low light. Here I am at f1.8 and I'm in focus, but my background is not. This is essential for subject separation and if you want the audience focused on the person. At f13, we can see the background open up more. This is that depth of field effect everyone talks about. I tend to use 2.8 for subjects and a tad bit of background, and f4 for landscape. Shutter speed is the length of time a camera shutter stays open. This works alongside with frame rates, which is usually 24 for cinematics and 60 to 120 for slow motion. The general rule is the 180-degree rule, or basically that your shutter is double your frame rate. Here's my frame rate low, which creates a lot of motion blur. This is high with minimal motion blur. And this is exactly double, which gives the most realistic blur close to our eyes. ISO controls the amount of light your camera lets in and determines how dark or light your image will be. My A7S III has dual base ISO from 640 to 12800. These values give your image the least amount of noise. For brighter shots, I usually stay at 640, and for darker, I'm usually at 12800. And any excess light is covered by my ND filter. Just search your camera's base ISO and work with it from there. These all work together for something called the correct exposure, but that video will be up soon. The next step is the right composition. This is essentially how you arrange your shot. The first I use is symmetry, which is basically equally filling the rule of thirds grid on your camera or following your image's lines. It creates visually appealing images and draws your audience's attention. The next is leading lines, such as those in roads or buildings that lead your eyes to a certain direction. Last, we have negative space, which is just filling one portion of your image and leaving space to the equal opposite side of the frame. Next, we have getting angles. To tell a story, it's best to get establishing shots, wide shots, mediums, and close-ups. Establishing shots tell your audience the setting, and those shots after are for details. The mediums and close-ups can emphasize what you want your audience to focus on and helps them subconsciously gather the story together. It's also best to get creative and immerse your audience with cool shots such as this one in the bag, where it can help the audience pay attention as well as make the story feel more immersive. Just think outside the bag and try different things out. Make sure to have too much footage so that you can play with various shots of the same thing. Now we have lighting. I usually love to shoot golden hour, and that's because the sun is lower and can create contrast. For example here, the sun is high in the sky and doesn't provide us with much contrast. But if we shoot on the shadow side or where there is less light, it creates more depth, giving us that cinematic look. Now our last steps are post-production, specifically color grading and sound design. Shooting in log and then color grading to your specific scene can give it a cinematic look. I won't go too in depth, but to learn more about this, check out this beginner tutorial I have, as well as the more advanced one. But I start in log, add my base LUT, color correct, adjust my lighting, and then make colors pop with HSL. Color grading to your specific scene is essential for getting the look and feel you want of your cinematic. Color obviously depends on what you're shooting, but I find myself to be shooting more warm and more contrasty, and essentially sometimes even more punchy with my colors. Now we have sound design, which I also have a video on. This essentially allows you to amplify certain sounds to better immerse your audience and make them feel like they're really experiencing the scene. With all that can give you a better feel on how to make cinematic videos. Stay tuned for more tips, tricks, and tutorials, and comment and subscribe for more. I'm out.